Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of House of the Dragon Season 2 premiere, A Son for a Son. Please keep book spoilers out of the comments. Okay, so we actually open with this really cool visual of the raven that is delivering the message to Winterfell about Luke's death. Under this is a narration from Lord Cregan Stark, who is actually speaking to Jace and explaining tradition of picking people for the Night's Watch from the north. And we even get to hear him say winter is coming. And I like they mentioned how Aegon the Conqueror would threaten with dragons to the north, where Jace can kind of change that reputation of how he handles his dragons. And I also like when they were talking about how dragons even refuse to cross the wall. But Jace is there to make sure that the Starks keep their oath to King Viserys, and that's where Cregan explains the Starks always keep their oaths, but the number one loyalty he has is to the wall. But the compromise is that he will send the older warriors for Rhaenyra. Now, we won't see Jace's trip to the Vale, which was explained in the finale that that was going to be the first stop before Winterfell. So he explains later in the episode to his mom that he did get the Vale to agree to support Rhaenyra for protection from one of the dragons. We just did not see that. We also see that the actor definitely looks a bit older here, and his hair has grown longer, so it was smart they got rid of the Beatles haircut for Jace. Now, Princess Rhaenys will show up on Melee's to Dragonstone, but Daemon's like, nope, I want you back out there. And he wants him and her to go to King's Landing to kill Vhagar. And he has a great line saying, I cannot face that hoary old bitch alone. And he says, with my dragon and yours, we can kill Vhagar and his rider, make it a son for a son. Now, he's speaking about Aemond. That is also the title of the episode, but it is a title that means a son for a son, not the son you think in Aemond, that it's going to be a different son with a different mother. Now, Rhaenyra, during all this, is grieving. And this is where Rhaenys will explain it was only till she saw her daughter's remains that she could begin to mourn her, and that this is what exactly Rhaenyra is doing, looking for the remains of Luke to make sure it's not just from a raven hearing that her son died, that he actually is dead. Daemon says she was a fool to go alone. What would happen if Aemon appeared upon her? And she says, then I would pity Aemon. I love that line. Gives Rhaenyra some serious street cred. She praises Rhaenyra for not acting on vengeful impulse, but this is where Daemon says, if you had acted when you had the chance, Aegon's line would be extinguished and Luke would be alive. So remember, Rhaenys was the one who showed up to all of the high towers, and at that moment could have technically burned them all alive, but did not. And he still commands her to go fly with him, and she's like, nah, you're not my king. Now, we see Lord Corlys for a little bit. He already, of course, wants to go back out on sea and fight, and he is given the dagger that he had that was meant for Luke. And we meet this character, Alan, who gives it to him. We learn Alan was the one who saved Lord Corlys, and he says, I am indebted to you, to this character of Alan. So a line like that's important. They're clearly making Alan a character that it will have more significance as the show goes on. They wouldn't just throw that scene in there. I also love this little moment it cuts to at King's Landing where the guards are on serious dragon watch, like totally paranoid, but they're like, no, it's just Vhagar. Like, woo! I thought that was really cool. Now we see Aegon and Helena with their twins, and you see that Aegon is excited also that Jaehaerys will be king one day. It also is showing you in this episode how much he loves his son Jaehaerys and excited he is for him. And that to me was important because it's setting up knowing that Jaehaerys will die at the end of this episode, that this would be something that would make Aegon, who's already a bit nuts, even crazier, something that would make him go totally down that darker side of himself. Now, Helena, who always says random things, she says she's afraid. Now, these random things always usually are prophecies. And she says, not the dragons, the rats. So the rats you'll see a couple times this episode, literally, but metaphorically, this is foreshadowing the rat catcher and the guard who will kill her son. But I love the humor of this scene, that all the maids just look around, even Aegon, like, okay, when she talks, like the Dr. Evil, right. Now, Kristen Cole's going downtown on Alicent, And she's like, we cannot again, but that won't last because we literally see in the last scene of the episode, they're getting it on again. Now, this will be very important. Lord Larys is on the prowl. He knows about everything going on. And I do think with his foot fetish with Alicent, I think there's a little bit of a protection and a jealousy that could form there of Alicent. And I think that's going to put Cole in trouble here because it's not even like a guy like Lord Larys has to even face Cole himself. He'll just rat out that he is sleeping with Alicent, which he's not supposed to do. There's hints that he's already on to Alicent's up to something else because he will mention that the handmaid said she wasn't under the weather, basically. So he knows something is up. So he's got a scent of something going on. I think Larys will clearly be the undoing of Cole by the end of this season, if I'm going to make a bold prediction. Now, before the council meeting here, they have a little glimpse of the Ratcatcher right outside the council meeting. So that was a nice little touch because you see that, but you don't take the significance in yet of that character. I love during this meeting, though, that Jaehaerys is just playing with the ball. A lot of people like this ball in season 1, as did I. So it's funny they're making a joke of the kid liking it as well. And this was a big moment showing you how much Aegon loves his son, smiling at him during this. And this is where we also see that crazy side of Aegon where he wants Tylan to give Jaehaerys a ride. And Aegon wants to burn anyone who doesn't bend the knee. But that's the difference. Alicent does not want to do that. She has to kind of keep that under control. She's like, we cannot risk losing any dragons. It's also interesting. Alicent sent Rhaenyra an apology letter that has not been answered. We also see that they pretty much locked in the Stormlands because they have Aemon with the marriage pact to Lady Florys Baratheon. And they mention a Greyjoy possibly offered a title of the new Master of Ships. So that will be interesting to hear that name in this show. It's also interesting when Lord Larys talks to Alicent after the meeting that he was there to check if there was any staff that wasn't loyal. And he chose the new staff personally to replace people that were killed that weren't loyal. And this is important because he's choosing the staff personally. He's just setting up his cards. You see how many cards he's setting up in this episode. And that will continue on with Aegon because he is seeing in this episode that Aegon is generous to the small folk. This is the good characteristic of Aegon, that he values that, and that Otto is a rift there because Otto's like, whatever you do, everyone's going to hear it, and then more people are going to want it. So you don't want to open that door and help one because then many will keep coming and think that can happen. But you'll see that even though Aegon sort of listens to Otto, he still holds his ground with the blacksmith and giving him the money to make the weapons that are going to be important for the war. But this is where Lord Larys, who is our Littlefinger of the show, does a brilliant move by noticing that rift between him and Otto and making it a chance basically for him to become the Hand. He's saying that why would you want to live in your father's footsteps if he was looked as pliable with Otto Hightower? And just the fact that that was his father's hand. It's common psychology that a son would not want to just do exactly what their father did, especially if it's not a good reputation. So he just pulls at that perfectly. I just want to mention Alicent's current state of mind. She's clearly very on edge, and that's really shown well visually when she's taking a bath and she doesn't let the handmaidens clean her. She does it herself. It reminds me of the tick she had where she was picking at her nails. Alicent gets this way, almost manic in a sense. Also, we see Rhaenyra finds the dragon wing on the beach and has a sad moment finding Luke's remains on the beach, so now she can kind of start to mourn and move on. Now, Alicent asks Otto if they want to pursue the same end. She's sick of him undercutting her at these councils because she really doesn't want her sons to just turn against her and constantly listen to Otto. They really value what Otto says, so she does not want that. But it is interesting that at the same time, she doesn't know that Lord Larys is breaking that trust that Aegon has in Otto. But Alicent wants victory. They both want victory, but she sees it as Rhaenyra bending the knee and Aegon sitting the throne in peace, like she thinks was Viserys' vision. But it's a pipe dream, and Otto knows this deep down. Like that, he doesn't care about the part of keeping Rhaenyra at peace. That's why he says to her too, you must accept the path to victory is one of violence. She knows that, Alicent. She's not an idiot, but it's obviously not something she prefers. Now, Corlys's men will find the White Worm on one of the ships. I'm not the biggest fan of this actress who plays the White Worm. She's the only actress on the show. I'm just not crazy about her performance and really everything I've watched, unfortunately, and that kind of continues here. But Daemon flips on her because he found out she was the rat and working with Otto, but she explains it was purely transactional in business, has no loyalty to Otto, and especially now. And Daemon just wants to lock her up, but it is the twin Eric explaining to Daemon that you got to look at this a different way, and Daemon will get smart and use that to his advantage because he is going to offer her freedom now for information. That's how he's going to get knowledge about who can be broken in King's Landing and how he can sneak his way into King's Landing. It's a nice contrast here too when Rhaenyra finally shows up to Dragonstone and is announced as the queen, because we saw the king get announced earlier in the episode, Aegon, so you're seeing both parties still acknowledging who they believe in. And all Rhaenyra says to her council is, I want Aemon Targaryen. Now, what's important is Daemon will go out of his way to set up this assassination, but he didn't take it as her saying, she didn't say kill Aemon, she wants him. So there could have been someone who took the approach of just bringing him to her, which I think she would probably prefer if I know Rhaenyra. I do like they were able to get in the moment though where Jace finally sees his mom and they kind of cry it out while he's updating her on how he did his job in getting these alliances locked down. I also love they cut between Luke's funeral and Alicent lighting candles for ones she mourns, like her mother, like King Viserys, and she hesitates, but she still lights a candle for Luke. So there's still a little love there. And it's important because that beautifully sets up later when Aemon's talking about it makes his mom a fool that she has love for the enemy. Now Daemon will sneak into King's Landing and he pays off the guard who he learned hates the high towers, and then he meets with the Ratcatcher, who knows the tunnels, and he has the line of the episode saying he knows them better than the shape of his own cock. I laughed out loud at that. But Daemon wants him and the guard to slay Aemon Targaryen, and he says, not hard to find, he has silver hair and one eye. So they clearly didn't remember or even pay attention when he said the one eye part, which would have made it so much easier when they looked at these two children and saw they both had both of their eyes, that they were clearly doing something wrong. Unfortunately, Daemon did not consider he's working with two idiots. Now, while this is going on, we see that Aemon and Criston are making war plans of their own, and you see through the episode multiple people say how loyal Aemon is. That is Otto who says that to Alicent, and that is Aegon saying it when he's drunk to his cohorts. So that is not the case, though. He's misjudged there because he is loyal in a sense, Aemon, but he's not, because he's already plotting behind their backs, and that's where Otto's basically telling him to tread carefully. It's also interesting, Aemon says Alicent is simply angry. This is the same thing Alicent said about Aemon's current state of mind. And he says that she blames me for starting this war. After she plotted with my father's council to usurp this throne, her grace speaks with two tongues. This shows you that Aemon is not just some psycho. He is a smart character and observant. And Criston says, not her fault, she fell in Rhaenyra's web. This is the opposite. Criston's just an ignorant idiot. It's also interesting when Otto shows up to Aemon that he tells him you and Vhagar are the greatest single power in the realm, which is interesting and probably true, but he says there are many pieces at play here, some of which you cannot see. So he's like seeing in Aemon, he's smart, he's strong, but he's too impulsive sometimes, and he doesn't want him to be like that, like his brother is, to just chill for a second, basically. I also love we got to see the King Viserys statue in the throne room. That was a nice touch. And of course, when we get back to the Ratcatcher and the guard, we have to see the Ratcatcher kick this dog. Just brutal to watch. Now, this sequence made the episode for me. It was incredibly well done and tense. That is how you do a tense scene. I love the lightning, I love the rain. Everything about it was great. It's also interesting that one handmaiden saw the guard posing as a Ratcatcher, so that is going to be important. But this Ratcatcher and the guard find Queen Helena, and she points to her son, Jaehaerys, who is then cut up. Good Lord. And then she walks in on Criston, and Alicent takes the other twin to protect her and says they killed the boy. Wow. Crazy, crazy ending. So they kill the wrong son. This show has a thing where you think one thing's going to happen, and it completely flips it on its head, and it's sort of like what you thought would happen, like, oh, a son for a son, it's going to be Aemon, but it's not. It's something gets messed up and it gets gray, and that's what I love about this show with both sides, that they all have their plans and schemes, but nothing goes to plan, and there's still a little love between certain characters, but at the end of the day, you can't predict anything, and that's what makes the whole Game of Thrones universe excellent, and they stick to that here. And Ramon's score here in the credits is fantastic. I love this song he does. But overall, I'm going to give this premiere a solid 9. I did think it was a little slow in the middle. There would have been nice to see a little more time with Rhaenyra for a premiere, but I still think it was really, really good. I think it set pieces on the board really well, and you also have to kind of recover from Luke's death. You don't want to have a bunch of crazy stuff happen right away when something crazy just happened in the previous finale, but it gives you a really exciting ending with a super well directed scene, and the acting here is still top notch, and it's just getting me excited for what's next week to come here with this reaction from the High Towers. Let me know your thoughts down below the episode. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews, and I'll see you next time.